Hey everybody, I'm Sam Haymart and you're watching Test Driven TV. Today we have got the redesigned 2025 Ford Maverick pickup, and this is the Streetwise Lobo, the new trim grade that brings sort of an urban and even track style vibe to the Maverick. So I'm going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a drive, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think. So let's look at the truck that Ford has given us to test this week. This is an Oxford White Lobo Maverick, and this is fully loaded with the 702A package. That makes it pretty expensive. As tested, we're at $43,120. The price just went up in the last few weeks as we're doing this filming because of the tariff situation. It was just a tick less, but still a pretty expensive Maverick, one of the most expensive ways that you can get this truck. And the Lobo is an all-new trim grade for this year that brings more of an urban street truck vibe to the Maverick, which I have to tell you, I really kind of like what they've done here. And what does that mean? Looking right up front, you've got the redesigned face for the 2025 model year on the Maverick. Here we have a gloss black grille, LED headlights that have a really sharp shape, fog lights down in the lower front fascia, which is body color instead of black plastic. And as we come around the sides, all of the lower black plastic cladding on the Maverick in this trim grade is body color, and it really just makes the look of this truck, I think. Lobo badge up on the fender. The wheels on this, now there are two different wheels you can get. This is the standard, which is a 19-inch turbofan design. This is inspired by the Tucci SEMA truck that was first shown way back in the early 2021, 2022 era, when the truck was first introduced and customs were built. Now, this is not exactly the same wheel, obviously, but inspired by, right? It comes with some nice rubber on it. If this wheel's a bit much for you, you can get a different 19-inch wheel design as an option. Up on top, this has the black painted roof option as well. Sunroof, you can see. Another thing you might notice is a lower ride height. This has a performance-tuned suspension with different springs, different dampers. It's about a ½ inch lower in the front and a little over 1 inch lower in the back, so it sits a little bit more level. Performance brakes from the Ford Focus ST. So it not only has the look, it's got improved handling, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Coming around the back, you can see that this has a nice planted look as well because of that lower cladding, this body color. Popping open the cargo box, I just want to show you some of the features back there. This has a spray-in bed liner. Standard with this. This has the cleat system and rails, the power outlet, and the lighting in the back. So this is a fully loaded truck. It's got all the bells and whistles on it. Power sliding window in that rear glass. A very nice feature on this, although it's kind of a little porthole in this case. You certainly couldn't let anybody in or out of the truck that way. Maybe a dog could get out. While refreshes typically don't have new metal, the sheet metal stamping on this tailgate is all new because the plastic around the actual liftgate handle is completely redesigned because this truck has a full 360-degree camera system available on it for 2025. As you can see, cameras under the side mirrors, camera at the front, and this also plays into the Pro Trailer Assist system that this truck also has. A lot of stuff on a Maverick, and that's why we get back to this price tag, which is literally twice what my 22 Maverick cost back in 2022. Literally twice. Totally worth the conversation are some of the upgrades that we can find here on the interior. They have made this trim grade a little bit unique from the rest, and it starts with the same black, blue, and gray back plastic we find in all of the other Mavericks, but they've given it some lime and grabber blue accents throughout, and you can see that in the stitching. You can see that in the little pieces on the vents and some of the pieces on the doors. These are heated seats with Lobo embossed on the backs and more of those beautiful lime and grabber blue accents. The actual material here is sort of a graffiti-inspired patterned vinyl called Active X. I will share that while these look good and they're relatively comfortable, at $43,000, I'm kind of thinking we ought to have leather here. It is plastic, it is vinyl, not leather. It may look like it, but it certainly is not. When you look at the Bronco Sport, which is essentially the same vehicle, it has a much nicer interior at the same price point with the same powertrain built on the same assembly line. That vehicle offers leather seats. There's no reason why, now that we're in the $40,000 range, Ford ought not be offering that here. But that said, They are comfortable seats, and they do have heating, power adjustments, and all of that. A nice steering wheel with paddle shifters on it and stitching, which makes it nice and handsome. And for 2025, they made a few key changes, as most people are aware. The instrument cluster is a completely digital unit, and you can really see all of the information on there. You can customize it just a little bit. And when you page through all of the different drive modes, why, it's got some great graphics. Off to the middle is really where the big news is. They've replaced the old clock radio, that awful system this truck used to have, and I know it. I live with one in my 2022 Maverick. It's a piece of crap. This is a much improved infotainment system. This is standard across the board. Though in this particular model, this does have the upgraded B&O sound system behind it. But what is standard on all Mavericks is this 13+ inch screen, touch screen. It has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It is wireless, and it works very well. Its graphics are crisp and clean. It reacts to your touch well. The only downside is all of the climate controls are now added to the touchscreen. They've eliminated all of that from down below in the hard controls. That I'm not so happy with, but as someone who lives in the old Maverick with the old screen setup, this is a great improvement. Of all the things this truck has that mine does not, I wish I had this. The back seat is just as nicely trimmed as the front seats, so your rear seat passengers are going to enjoy all of the beauty and the comfort that you have up front. When you fold that seat up to get into the lower compartments, it is still all one piece. They don't yet offer a split seat back there yet. This also has the Pro Trailer Backup Assist, which has a knob right here, which allows you to sort of steer the vehicle, and it really helps you with the screen prompts and the 360-degree views to get a nice view of what you're backing up to and help you back those trailers up. It's a nice feature. I really think it's a good feature in the larger trucks where you're going to have a larger trailer, but given the towing rating on this truck being pretty small, and I'm just not sure. I've never really been a big fan of this myself because maybe I've backed up a lot of trailers in my life and I don't need it. But in a small vehicle like this, I do find it kind of an extra that I wish I didn't have to pay for. What's under the hood here is the 2-liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that we have seen on the spec sheet for Ford Maverick since 2022. This is the same EcoBoost engine you're going to find in other 2025 Ford Mavericks. Horsepower is 238. Torque is 277 according to the current specs. The big headline here that not very many people know, and Ford really didn't make a big deal about, is this is a completely brand new engine from the ground up from the 2022 to 2024 models. It shares barely a nut or bolt. It's got a new block, new head, new valve cover, new fuel system, new air intake system. It is new from the ground up. While the horsepower figures are essentially pretty close, this engine is now built in Dearborn, Michigan. It's a completely new generation. Connected here is a 7-speed automatic transmission, essentially the same box as the 8-speed automatic, but it has paddle shifters, and the programming is a little bit different, and it just uses the gears that are inside it in a different way. Backing that up, an advanced all-wheel drive system, which we'll talk about when we get out on the drive. And, well, I guess it's time to do that. So the really big difference that I've noticed driving this truck in my week with it starts with this lowered suspension and the handling. It's quite a bit tighter. The steering has a different feel to it, especially if you dial it up to sport mode. And the brakes definitely are more aggressive. It's got a nice feel to it. It feels of quality. It feels like a nice, solid, well buttoned down chassis. It still has the same firm ride that I'm used to with the Maverick, but maybe even just a little bit firmer. The modulation on the pedal is good. This does have an electronically controlled brake system, just like the hybrid and other models that do have the full Copilot 360, but it feels very natural. One of the big things that this vehicle has that really sets it apart is the advanced all-wheel drive system that backs up the powertrain that we talked about. And it's the same rear drive unit that's found in the Tremor. It's found in some of the other more off-road variants of the Bronco Sport. And basically it is a twin clutch rear drive unit that allows torque vectoring. So it can actually push power to the outside wheel, to the inside wheel, depending on which direction you're turning, particularly when you use the Lobo mode, which when you put it on, you know, you can go to sport. That gives you a nice sporty driving feel with the shifting and the steering. You go to Lobo and it really dials this all-wheel drive system into be autocross-like, which it's kind of funny to me. This is a truck, but granted, it's the marketing, it's what they've done. Instead of tuning it to be all set up for off-roading, they've used the same system to divvy up torque and power to be more appropriate for autocrossing. It's kind of cute. So if you watch my videos, you know the question I always like to ask is, how does it go? So I'm going to come to a complete stop out here on a desolate piece of road and go. It's got a nice sound to it. And 60. Now, with 238 horsepower or 250, depending on which specs you believe, it's not really any faster than any other EcoBoost Maverick. In fact, there's some evidence out there to believe that it's a little bit slower because of the extra weight of all of the components this truck carries around with it. But it sounds good. It's got a performance sound to it that was sort of tuned in electronically, I believe. It's not the exhaust system, but it works very well. And this paddle shifting transmission, it's kind of cool. I wish I had paddle shifters in my Maverick, although mine's a hybrid, wouldn't really matter. They'd be for braking. But it's a nice little set of features here for that. Now this transmission, I've driven several of these that have the 8-speed automatic, and it's really hard for me to tell a big difference in how this behaves, other than, particularly in sport mode, it really does give you a little bit more control over the shifts, and they're pretty firm. It works pretty neatly. So it's a fun little part of the Lobo experience to have that. And power and delivery of this engine, quite nice. But it sounds like a higher quality engine than the previous generation EcoBoost engine. As I mentioned at the outset, an all new engine. It's got an aluminum valve cover, which helps with some of the mechanical sound. Now, fuel economy, this is rated at 21 city, 30 highway, and 24 combined. In my week with it, I got about 22. And I attribute most of that to the fact that I've had the air conditioner on. Even right now, though it looks kind of cloudy outside, it's kind of hot. So air conditioning always really hits the fuel economy nonetheless. But it's par for the course for what most people with EcoBoost Mavericks have typically seen in their fuel economy. But yeah, this performance sound that this has is pretty neat. I like it. Yeah. So I didn't take it on the autocross, so we didn't get to experience and how the dual clutch drive unit in the rear, the differential, divvies up power and torque vectoring. In a lot of ways, unless you had a wet autocross course, I have a hard time imagining how the level of power and torque that this vehicle has would really give you a chance to experience how that looks and feels. Maybe throw some dust or some sand out there so you can get some slippage and see how that goes. But it's a nice feature to have. It's great for off-roading, great for ice. And in a street version like this, there's a lot of things that can be done with it. So it's kind of a cool deal if you want it bad enough to pay up into this trim grade to get it. All right, my friends, there you have it for our walk around, show and tell, and brief test drive of the 2025 Ford Maverick LOBO. I have to tell you, as a Maverick owner, I have a 2022 Maverick XL. It's a hybrid. This is a very nice Maverick. As far as Mavericks go, it is probably the nicest one that I have test driven ever. It's also the most expensive one I have test driven ever. I would have never thought when I bought my own truck 3 years ago that I would have one in front of me that's literally twice the price. I would have said, oh, you have to be kidding. And so that's really the big topic here. Is it worth 43 grand? I don't know. I really don't know. But here's the thing. If you look at a Bronco Sport that's fully loaded, same engine, same platform, same chassis, it's a little bit different shape, but it's essentially the same vehicle, you're in the same price range there. If you look at any competitor to this, if you go to the Hyundai Santa Cruz and you get a fully loaded Santa Cruz, you're in the same price range. Now, it's kind of a different vehicle. It's not apples to apples. The Hyundai offers a lot more things that this does not even, and it's just a different animal. This is a lowered street truck. The Hyundai Santa Cruz is different. But if you're just looking at what's in the neighborhood, we're not that out of line price-wise compared to what you can get elsewhere. And honestly, if you're looking at SUVs and the compact and midsize SUV, spending $40,000 to $45,000 is easy. So, is it worth the money? It's a lot of money, and that's only because my frame of reference is, as I said, I bought one 3 years ago for half the price. Less features, but it's very nice. This new engine, I think, is the big story that nobody's talking about. It is a well-done improvement over the previous EcoBoost, both port and direct fuel injection. A lot of people have been clamoring for that for a long time in this engine family. It's got it now. It has a little bit less horsepower, but there's some reasons and some confusion around that, and we get into that more in our nuts and bolts video on this engine, which is linked at the end of the video, and we'll get to that here in a second. But overall, I really like this. I like the flavor, I like the feel, I like the look of it. Would I buy one? I don't know. It'd be great if a hybrid version of this were available. I might even spend the money for that, if I'm honest. I think this is a well-packaged version of the Maverick for the buyer that wants something a little bit different in the market, because if you think about it, no other truck on the market offers this type of look and feel and packaging, a lowered street truck sort of approach. And if you want that, if you grew up through the 80s like I did and it sort of turns you on, this is your one-stop shop, baby. So there you go, our test drive and walk around, all of that for the 2025 Ford Maverick. As I said, you can see our under the hood tour right there, and that is tied to our Maverick playlist. We have over 80 videos of Maverick test drives, tech, how-tos, things like that. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel right there and stay informed on everything we do. Either way, stay tuned.